Hello there, and welcome to today's review. I'm not exactly known for my love of scary stuff, but F.E.A.R, or First Encounter Assault Recon, is one notable exception. So, what makes this shockingly specific piece of media so enjoyable for someone like me? Well, stay tuned and you'll find out. Let's get some of the basics out of the way first though. F.E.A.R was released in 2005 for Microsoft Windows, as well as the Xbox 360 and PS3 consoles. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Xbox 360 version. Since this game isn't currently compatible with the Xbox One, I had to boot up the old 360, which kinda sounds like a dying whale at this point. Still works like a charm though. Okay, let's get to the review. Let's start off by talking about F.E.A.R's general presentation and visuals. This game definitely looks dated by today's standards, but for 2005 the visuals are quite impressive. The game does show its age in some of the outdoor segments, but these are relatively brief and far in between. For the most part, the setting is relegated to office buildings and warehouses that all look pretty good due to their relatively small scale, though a lot of the criticism I've heard towards this game is regarding the setting, as most of the locations do end up feeling quite similar. While I do agree with these criticisms to a certain extent, I didn't see this as such a bad thing. The claustrophobic and often dark or ruined environments lend themselves well to the atmosphere of F.E.A.R, which I just realized sounds kind of funny. There are many factors that contribute to the effectiveness of this creepy atmosphere, and the presentation is where most of these factors stem from. For instance, the lighting in this game is praised often, and for good reason. It's not common to see such dynamic and simultaneously terrifying lighting in a first-person shooter. Each type of light source casts unique shadows, and each also reacts to manipulation from the player or enemies. The absence of light is also used to great effect, as the player's flashlight has an automatically recharging yet limited battery, leading to some scary moments that feel natural rather than artificial or scripted. Particle effects also play a major stylistic role in F.E.A.R, but not exactly in the way that lighting does. While the dynamic lighting provides ample scares and perpetuates the uneasy atmosphere of the game, the particle effects provide multifaceted and heart-pounding firefights with enemy soldiers. The way that gunfire and explosives manipulate the environment is still a marvel to behold by today's standards. Honestly, I think it's best for me to just show you why this is so cool rather than tell you, because it's kind of hard to explain. The sound design also helps to strengthen the atmosphere. The soundtrack is comprised mostly of ambience with some more upbeat stuff here and there to highlight certain sections. It reminds me a lot of Half-Life 2, which I know I also referenced in my last video. It's almost like it's my favorite game or something. Anyways, the sound effects are also really well done, which makes for a very immersive experience. Gunfights are chaotic and exploration sections are eerily quiet, making both stand out from one another. But I'll get to that more later on. One last technical aspect that I think I should mention before moving on is the frame rate, which PC players don't really have to worry about. I think for the console ports it should have been locked at 30 frames per second. This isn't a problem that's exclusive to F.E.A.R though, as some other early 360 titles like Quake 4 also have this problem. This isn't a big deal though, and if you're playing on PC, it shouldn't be an issue for you. Now, let's talk about the story. F.E.A.R's story deals with various supernatural occurrences, if you couldn't tell already, and puts the player in the shoes of the recently appointed point man of the fictional US Special Forces unit known as F.E.A.R, or First Encounter Assault Recon. This time around, the F.E.A.R unit is sent in to deal with a psychic known as Paxton Fettel, who has just taken control of the headquarters of a technology corporation known as Armacam, and killed most of the people inside with the help of his telepathically controlled replica soldiers. There's also a creepy little girl involved named Alma, who serves as a more recognizable antagonist. What I think is the coolest part about this story is the mysterious elements, as nobody knows why Fettel has targeted Armacam or why there's a creepy girl who kills people. Also, since the point man is a silent protagonist, this whole experience is made even more immersive. This game also doesn't feature many cutscenes. I mean, there's one in the intro and there's plenty of scripted sequences, but for the most part the story is told during gameplay. I must confess, I'm a sucker for this type of storytelling. Instead of a cutscene at the end of each level, you get a mission briefing screen, which is such a great touch. It's so seamless, and it also disguises loading screens, so it earns some bonus points for that. Another major storytelling device in this game is discovering laptops with downloadable data and phones with messages that you can listen to for some context.
You have one first message from an outside number. Jason, it's me. I just saw the news. What's going on? Please call me back and let me know you're okay. I'm really freaking out. End of messages.
I love this mechanic too. Instead of being forced to watch a cutscene to learn story details, it's all done in real time during gameplay. It's really nice not to have to go into a menu to read something or listen to an audio log like you would have to in other games. Instead, all you have to do is click on the phone or laptop and listen while you maintain control of your character. It's also nice to have some contact with the outside world via the F.E.A.R team coordinator who briefs you on the information you download from laptops.
Down was a synchronicity event. Doesn't say what that means, but I guess there were a few casualties.
It goes without saying that some portions of this game are scary and disorienting, so it's nice to have some stability through this communication. And this also allows for some even greater scares in a few sections of the game where you lose radio contact with the coordinator due to some change in the environment.
I'm losing your signal. We may be out of contact from here on.
Systems like this allow the player to seamlessly explore the world of F.E.A.R, while also gradually gaining an understanding of the game's plot. F.E.A.R doesn't necessarily have an amazing story, but the way that it's presented makes up for this. For the most part, gameplay in F.E.A.R is broken up into two distinct activities: shooting guys and shooting a brick. I'll start with the shooting guys bit, because it's less embarrassing. Perhaps the most universally recognized feature of F.E.A.R's gameplay is the immaculate enemy AI, which is 100% still impressive to this day. In a lot of FPS games, enemies are pretty much just glorified obstacles waiting to be shot down, but in F.E.A.R, the replica soldiers are actually a worthy opponent for once. Replicas respond directly to what the player is doing. These guys will flank you with ease and set up ambushes when they know they can't kill you any other way. Rarely do they make mistakes and allow you to kill them easily, meaning that you have to outsmart them to have a chance against them. Another recognizable aspect of F.E.A.R's combat is the reflex mode, which is similar to Max Payne's bullet time in that it allows you to slow down time to get the upper hand on your enemies. Of course, you can't use this mode indefinitely, but it helps to explain why one man is able to take down virtually a whole army. This mode is really fun to play around with, and it's almost necessary at times when you're seriously outnumbered. F.E.A.R includes a fantastic arsenal of weapons to cause carnage with. Some are more typical FPS firearms, while others reduce your foes to only a skeleton. Even the more typical firearms feel great to use though, due to the great sound design and this game's awesome ragdoll physics. F.E.A.R is also notable for including one of the most highly regarded shotguns in FPS history. This thing is f***ing great. Sometimes when you hit somebody with it, they literally just turn into a red cloud of blood. Using the shotgun in conjunction with reflex mode makes you feel like a complete badass, and I would say that it's overpowered, but getting too close to your enemies will get you melted harder than Frosty the Snowman in the middle of the equator. Okay. Along with the weapons and enemy AI, one of my personal favorite aspects of F.E.A.R's gameplay is the level design. There is a fairly obvious path to follow in each level, but for nearly every enemy encounter, there are multiple ways to approach. Often one pathway will lead you directly into the enemy's sights, while the other offers a sneakier route. Other routes during exploration sections can lead you to secrets like upgrades for your health and reflex mode, as well as extra ammo and armor. This certainly helps to make the game feel less linear and more like you're traversing through real locations. This time around I played through F.E.A.R on the high difficulty setting, which made using these separate paths to get the drop on the replicas pretty much necessary. Unfortunately, the level design takes a little bit of a dive towards the end of the campaign as locations become more linear and your enemies become more grenade spammy. This led to some seriously frustrating sections towards the end of the game, where I kept getting obliterated by the same grenades because they kill you on impact no matter how much health you have. Speaking of health, in F.E.A.R the only way you can replenish health is by using health packs. You can carry 10 at a time, and for most of the campaign this system works really well. But in some of the later stages of the campaign, I found that I would only have like 1 or 2 health packs to get through 20 replica soldiers, and while this did create some tense scenarios, it became more of a nuisance than anything, as I had to replay sections of the game that weren't all that fun to begin with due to the weaker level design. It's important to note that these problems don't occur throughout the entirety of the end of the game, just a few notable portions like this f***ing parking garage. And this stupid ass room where your only option is to hope you don't get blown away as you walk across this platform that is completely devoid of cover. Since we're on the topic of things that I didn't necessarily love in this game, I had quite a few times where my aim assist would just shoot my reticle across the screen instead of, assisting me. I honestly have no idea why this happens, and it doesn't really happen all that often, but I thought I should mention it anyways because it f***ed me up pretty bad on several occasions. Also, this is probably only a console issue, so PC players can ignore that part. The controls can feel a little bit antiquated at times too. Clicking the right stick to zoom never feels great, and leaning with the 360's infamously crappy D-pad is quite sloppy, but I can't fault it too much for this as it's a pretty old game. Other than replica soldiers, you'll have to deal with a few big robot guys and also some heavy soldiers that provide a nice change of pace as you have to think a little differently when you're fighting them. There's by no means a great variety of enemies to take down in F.E.A.R, but the ones that are there make up for this by having great AI and being fun to fight overall. Oh, and there's also these fast invisible guys who scare the shit out of me every time. I guess they're alright. I suppose that now's a good time to talk about the scary bits of F.E.A.R and the more exploration and horror-based sections of the game. Every so often in F.E.A.R, you'll be subjected to some jump scares and just generally creepy stuff. But these segments never last too long and never really take control away from you. Also, they can lead to some really great ambushes from enemy soldiers when you're least expecting it. Most of these scary bits involve either Paxton Fettel or Alma appearing out of thin air, and honestly, a lot of them are kind of underwhelming. I mean, after you've seen these two appear the first few times, it gets kind of old. And this is coming from the guy who just said at the beginning of this video that he's not fond of scary shit.
I'm not exactly known for my love of scary stuff.
That being said, there were a few that got me pretty good, even though I've played this game several times. I'll never get tired of showing that clip. Honestly, the only part about these spooky sections that I didn't really care for was that on several occasions these ghost dudes will pop up behind you and actually damage you, even though they seem like they're just a hallucination. They aren't scary and they aren't fun to fight, so this seemed pretty unnecessary to me. These guys don't show up too often though, so this isn't a serious complaint. Sure, these scary segments aren't quite as groundbreaking as the combat-focused parts, but they provide a great atmosphere as well as a nice contrast to the often chaotic shooting segments. And that's really all I have to say about F.E.A.R. I've wanted to talk about this game for a long time though, so it's quite possible that I missed something during the review. I can honestly say that F.E.A.R has one of my favorite FPS campaigns. The atmosphere is nearly perfect, combat is phenomenal, the story is intriguing. Now let's take a look at what this game got on Metacritic. The Xbox 360 version of F.E.A.R. got an 85% on Metacritic, and honestly I think I would give it a higher score, probably closer to 90%. To be fair though, the PC version does have an 88%, which is closer to what I would give it. Also, there must be something wrong with the PS3 version, because it only got a 72%, so I'll advise you to steer clear of that version even though I haven't actually played it myself. To conclude, I'll answer the question that I posed in the title of this video. I do think that F.E.A.R. is a good game, even a great game, 16 years later. That's pretty much all I've got for this review. If you enjoyed, it would mean a lot to me if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. I mean, I just started out. I have another video that you can check out that I uploaded a while ago about Gears of War 4, retrospective review of that game. I've got some more stuff coming. Please leave a comment if you enjoyed the video. Let me know what I did right. Let me know what I did wrong. If you agree with what I said about F.E.A.R., if you don't, if you've played it, just let me know how you're doing if you want to. And if possible, it would mean a lot to me if you would just share this video with others, maybe your friends, family, who you think would enjoy it, because it's hard to get a channel started on YouTube, and I'll take all the help I can get. Once again, thank you for watching, and have a great day.